The whisper is the most dangerous part. It doesn't arrive with a shout or a logical argument. It slips in through the cracks of your solitude, a ghost of a thought that feels like intuition. Maybe she's changed. This single quiet sentence becomes the key that threatens to unlock a door you've struggled to close. It's a seductive narrative your heart constructs to protect you from the blunt truth, offering a story where the pain had a purpose and the waiting was a test of faith. It tells you that this time, the pieces will fit, that the distance gave her the perspective to finally see your worth. To understand the depth of what she so carelessly tossed aside, it's a story of redemption. And you are cast as the gracious king, welcoming back the prodigal queen to a restored throne. But before that story takes root, you must arm yourself with a colder, harder truth. People at their core rarely undergo fundamental change through mere absence. The traits that broke youth inconsistency, the emotional withdrawal, the prioritizing of novelty over depth, these are not simple habits to be discarded like old clothes. They are woven into the fabric of a person's coping mechanisms and self-concept. What appears to be change is often just refinement in the art of concealment. They become better actors in the play of who you need them to be, learning to hide the jagged edges that cut you the first time, smoothing them over with just enough remorse and nostalgia to make them feel less sharp. But the edges are still there, and they will eventually snag on the fabric of your piece once more. Her return is a complex equation, and love is often the smallest variable in the sum. More frequently, it is a compound of nostalgia, longing for the comfort of a familiar harbor when the seas of her new life become stormy. It is regret not for the pain she caused you, but for the personal comfort she lost. She misses the stability you provided, the emotional scaffolding that held her up. And now she feels its absence like a phantom limb. And perhaps most potently, it is ego. Your continued presence in her emotional landscape, even as a memory, is a source of validation. Her return is a test to see if her power over you remains intact, a way to assure herself that she still matters, that the door to your attention is still on its hinges, waiting for her to push it open. When you see her again, or hear her voice, you will feel it a physical pull in the center of your chest, a familiar spark that once ignited entire forests of hope inside you. This feeling is a chemical echo, a memory of an addiction you've tried to quit, but you must learn to dissect this sensation. Do not confuse the warm familiarity of an old pattern with the genuine heat of a new connection. The comfort of the known can feel like safety, but it is the safety of a prison you've already escaped. She will speak in the old language, use the familiar phrases, and your spirit will leap in recognition. This is not a sign of destiny. It is a testament to the depth of the grooves she once carved in your psyche. Pay close attention to her words. She will say she missed you, and you must ask the silent, crucial question: did she miss you, or did she miss the way your unwavering attention made her feel about herself? Did she miss your essence, your quiet strength, your character? Or did she miss the emotional shelter you provided, the constant validation that acted as a balm for her own insecurities? There is a world of difference between missing a person and missing the services they provided. One is about love, the other is about utility. You must remember the leaving with absolute clarity. It was not an accident. It was not a misunderstanding that could have been cleared up with one more conversation. It was a choice. A calculated decision made in the cold light of day. She conducted a brutal cost-benefit analysis of a life with you versus a life of potential novelty and excitement. And in that moment, you were found wanting. She believed the grass was not just greener on the other side, but that it was fundamentally of a higher quality. She thought she could trade your quiet, consistent strength for someone louder, more visibly exciting, someone whose validation felt more like a prize to be won than a gift to be cherished. She confused your stability with boredom and mistook your depth for simplicity. But the world has a cruel, impartial way of revealing truth. Out there, beyond the sanctuary you offered, she discovered that most men are not equipped to be emotional anchors for a storm they did not create. They cannot handle the chaos she once expected you to manage. They may offer fleeting excitement, but they cannot provide the grounding, centering energy that you, perhaps without even realizing it, radiated. It is in this realization, the realization of scarcity, not of love that she begins to remember you. Her return is not born from a sudden, luminous understanding of your soul. It is born from the humbling impact of reality. The world did not love her as you did, and the contrast is a cold shock to her system. She will reappear not as the fiery, confident woman who left, but often softer, more hesitant. Draped in the wistful cloth of nostalgia, she will be a curator of your shared museum, pointing out the beautiful exhibits, the inside jokes, the late-night conversations, the moments of perfect harmony. She will speak of these with a reverence designed to lure you back into that shared mental space, because she knows a part of your mind still lives there, preserving those memories like sacred relics. She will present herself as calm, mature, and reflective. She will use phrases like, "I needed that time to find myself," offering a narrative of personal growth that conveniently frames her departure as a necessary journey rather than a rejection of you. But you must see through the performance. The version of her that is returning is not a new model. It is the same fundamental person who once made the active choice to walk away from you, now wearing an expertly crafted mask of regret. It is a mask designed to appeal to your compassion, to your hope, to your lingering desire for a happy ending. If you are not meticulously careful, that mask will fool you. You will start to believe the whisper. You will think maybe she has learned. Maybe she understands me now. Maybe she is finally ready for the love I was offering all along. But the reality is far less romantic. She is not coming back because she is ready to love you. She is coming back because life for her has temporarily stopped. And in that silence, the echo of what she lost with you is the only sound left. To truly fortify yourself against the siren song of her return, you must dissect the engine of her regret with unflinching clarity. The central critical truth you must brand onto your awareness is this: she is not arriving on your doorstep from a place of strength, but from a place of profound weakness. This is not a triumphant homecoming after a journey of self-discovery. It is a retreat after a defeat. The change in her demeanor is not the result of a sudden, hard-won emotional clarity, but the inevitable consequence of a world that has finally and indifferently stopped feeding the ego that once sustained her. The external validation she chased has dried up. The novelty she craved has revealed its hollow core. And the men she perceived as upgrades have shown themselves to be exactly what they always were: temporary distractions. Unab, and unwilling to provide the deep structural support you once offered without being asked. You were. And in her mind you remain her emotional safety net. This is a brutal but essential realization. You were not the starring role in her life's play. You were the safety harness that allowed her to perform risky, reckless emotional stunts without fear of a fatal fall. The comfort of your peace, the predictability of your presence, the unwavering nature of your support, these became her medicine. And for someone who lives in a state of internal chaos, peace is the most potent and addictive drug of all. It is the silence that makes their own internal noise bearable. She does not return with a builder's mindset, with tools and blueprints to construct something new and more resilient with you. She returns as a patient in search of a cure, seeking to reset to a previous stable state. You become her emotional rehab center, a place of quiet recovery. But here's the devastating distinction: she is not coming to heal, to do the difficult work of addressing the root causes of her own chaos. She is coming to convalesce, to absorb your calm until she feels strong enough to chase the next storm, leaving you once again drained and wondering what you did wrong. This brings us to the most crucial differentiation you must make: the line in the sand that separates a healthy reconciliation from a cyclical tragedy. Women like this rarely regret leaving you, the complex individual person with your own dreams, flaws, and spirit. Their regret is not for the loss of your specific laugh, your unique perspective on the world, or the quiet dreams you shared in the dark. What they mourn, what they genuinely feel the aching absence of, is how you made them feel. You provided a trifecta of emotional commodities that are exceedingly rare: safety, the feeling of being protected from the world and from their own impulses; certainty, the knowledge that you were a fixed point in a chaotic universe; and validation, the reflexive, consistent confirmation of their own worth and desirability. These feelings are a powerful cocktail. Their withdrawal is agonizing. But you must not let the intensity of her withdrawal symptoms fool you into believing. Her return is driven by genuine, selfless love. Regret and love are two different species, often mistaken for one another in the dim light of loneliness. Regret is inherently selfish. It is an emotion that only blooms in the soil of personal loss and discomfort. It says, "I feel pain because I no longer have the comfort you provided." Love, in its truest form, is selfless. It shows up before the loss. It is present in the daily choice to cherish, to understand, to build, and to protect. She did not operate from a place of that selfless love when she had you. Her emotions were elsewhere, hijacked by the allure of novelty and the constant hunger for external validation. But now that those new sources have proven fickle and have faded, the contrast is stark. The emotional shelter you built, which she once took for granted or even saw as a cage, now stands in her memory as a fortress of calm. She wants that calm back, desperately, but she does not want the responsibility that comes with it, the reciprocity, the vulnerability, the hard work of being a calm and steady partner herself. She wants the feeling without the foundation. Observe the methodology of her return. It is rarely a grand, declarative gesture. Instead, it is a series of subtle, calculated probes designed to test the waters. A "Hey, I was just thinking about you" text sent at midnight. A random, seemingly innocuous call about a forgotten item. A heart reaction on an old photo of yours on social media. These actions are crafted to appear casual, harmless, almost accidental. But they are not. This is her ego, dressed in the clothing of nostalgia, gently knocking on the door of your attention. It is a reconnaissance mission. She is checking the temperature of your interest, seeing if the embers of your old devotion still hold any heat. The moment you respond with warmth, with eager engagement, with immediate availability, you send a clear signal. The power dynamic remains unchanged. She feels that familiar, intoxicating rush of control, the assurance that her emotional real estate in your mind is still undeveloped, waiting for her to build whatever she likes upon it. Your peace, which you have worked so hard to cultivate, becomes the currency with which you buy back her fleeting interest. And in doing so, you bankrupt yourself once more. This initial subtle dance is where the battle is won or lost. Long before any discussion of reconciliation ever begins, this moment, the space between her knock and your potential answer, is not a crossroads of romance. It is a spiritual test sent by the universe itself to see if the pain you endured was a teacher you truly listened to, or just a torment you wish to escape. Her return is not a second chance for the relationship. It is a final exam for your soul. The question is not whether she has changed, but whether you have. The man who faced the silence, who wrestled with the loneliness and carved a new version of himself from the raw material of that heartbreak, that man is now being presented with his greatest temptation. Can you stand in front of the very fire that once burned you, feel its warmth, remember the light it cast, and still choose to remain in the cool, clear air of your own peace? The healed man does not respond to the bait. He observes it. He recognizes the familiar hook hidden within her words, the subtle tug on the line of his old attachments. But he no longer feels the urge to bite. This is because he has built a foundation that no longer requires her validation, or closure, or the illusion of control over the past to feel complete. He has discovered that closure is not a document she can sign and deliver to you. It is a fortress you build yourself, stone by stone, with the bricks of your own boundaries and the mortar of your self-respect. He is not waiting for an apology to feel free. He has already granted himself that freedom by accepting what was and choosing to move forward. The need to be understood by her has been replaced by a far more powerful state, the deep, personal understanding of himself, your silence. In this context, is your most powerful weapon. Not because it is a punishment you inflict upon her, but because it is the palpable evidence of the peace you now protect. It is not the cold, brittle silence of anger, which is simply a cry for attention in a different tone. It is the warm, full silence of contentment, the quiet of a man who is complete within his own company. When she senses that you still care, that your emotional state is still tied to her presence. She will instinctively begin to pull the same strings. She will test for jealousy, for nostalgia, for the old patterns of chasing and reaction. But the healed man remains unmoved, not out of spite, but out of substance. He has filled the emptiness she once occupied with purpose, with passion, with a life that is compelling on its own terms. Her chaos simply no longer fits into the architecture of his new world. She will inevitably comment on this shift. She will say, "You've changed," or "You're so cold now," often with a tone of accusation or wounded pride. Do not let this shake you. Do not feel the need to defend or explain your transformation. Simply accept the observation as the profound truth it is. Yes, you have changed. You are not cold. You are calm. You are not heartless. You are healed. The difference between the two is the entire universe. The cold man is still reactive, his energy directed outward in a defensive posture. The calm man is centered, his energy contained and directed inward, toward his own purpose. When you were emotional, volatile, and easily triggered by her actions, she was comfortable. Your reactions were a form of engagement, a proof that she held the remote control to your emotional state. But now that you have become peaceful, consistent, and unprovocable, she becomes deeply nervous. Your calm is a void her drama cannot fill, a mirror that reflects back her own instability. And she does not know how to handle a man who no longer reacts to the energy she emits, to take her back without requiring true, demonstrable accountability is not an act of forgiveness. It is an act of self-betrayal. It is a betrayal of the late nights you've spent putting yourself back together. It is a betrayal of the strength you found when you had no one to rely on but yourself. The entire painful lesson of her leaving was meant to evolve you, to force an upgrade in your operating system. To allow her back in under the same old terms is to willingly reinstall the same virus that crashed you the first time. It is to recycle your pain instead of transforming it into power. In this vulnerable state, loneliness and nostalgia are your most dangerous adversaries. They will conspire to create a romanticized filter over the past, highlighting the sweet moments and softening the sharp edges of the pain. They will whisper that this is fate, that the universe is bringing you back together. Do not believe them. This is not fate. It is a test, a final, critical examination to see if you have truly learned that your own peace is a more valuable currency than her companionship, that the strength found in silence is far more potent than the exhaustion of constant chasing, and that true closure is not a sentence she speaks to absolve you both, but a state of being you cultivate by honoring the boundaries you have set for your own well-being. Passing this test means looking at the person who was once your entire world and realizing, with a calm finality, that your world has grown much larger, and she no longer has a place in its geography. The decision, when it finally comes, will not feel like a victory parade. There will be no triumphant music swelling in the background, no dramatic slamming of a door, no applause from an unseen audience. The moment you consciously choose not to let her back in, the world will simply become very, very quiet. It will feel strange, almost anticlimactic. You will sit in the stillness of your own resolve, and a deep, settling calm will descend. A calm so profound, it is almost disorienting. This is the peace that arrives only when you have definitively broken a cycle that once defined you. It is the quiet acknowledgement that the man you were, the one who forgave too quickly, hoped too deeply, and loved with a desperate, porous generosity, has been retired. For a moment, you may even question if you did the right thing, because the pull of the old drama is a powerful addiction, and its absence leaves a void. But as the days pass, you will begin to feel the tangible difference in your very being. Your mind, once a frantic whirlwind of what-ifs and agonizing replays, grows still and focused. Your body feels lighter, as if you have put down a burden you were so accustomed to carrying, you forgot its weight. Your energy is no longer siphoned off into the black hole of her potential, and instead flows clearly and powerfully back into your own life. This is the reward for choosing yourself, a clarity and vitality you had, forgotten you possessed. While you are bathing in this newfound quiet, she will be fighting a storm of her own creation. This is a crucial part of the dynamic. Her entire strategy, whether conscious or not, was predicated on a single, unshakable belief that you were a constant. You were the safety net, the loyal anchor, the man who would always be there, patiently waiting in the harbor no matter how far she sailed or how recklessly she navigated. She believed your forgiveness was an infinite resource and your patience a bottomless well. The realization that this door is now closed, not slammed in a fit of anger, but quietly and firmly locked from the inside, will create a cognitive dissonance that eats away at her. Every time she checks her phone and sees no response, every time she hears through mutual friends about how well you are doing, every time she feels the acute ache of being truly, finally forgotten, it will strike a blow to her core identity. The power she held was not in her presence, but in your perceived need for it. This time, you did not merely leave her. She has actively lost you. There is a monumental difference. One is an action, the other is a consequence. You have not just walked away. You have outgrown the entire ecosystem of the relationship, and she can feel it. Her greatest punishment is not your anger, but your profound indifference. Anger is a form of engagement. It is hot energy that still connects you. Indifference is a void. It is the emotional disconnection that no amount of words or gestures can repair. She will scroll through old messages, replay cherished memories, and for the first time, she will not feel a sense of power or nostalgic longing. She will feel a hollow emptiness because she is no longer an active character in your world. You have moved on to bigger things, a new project that consumes your passion, sharper mindset, a deeper purpose, perhaps even the presence of a new woman who reflects the peace you now carry. But more importantly, you have moved on internally. The version of you that needed her validation to feel whole has been dismantled. You have stopped explaining your worth, stopped overgiving to prove your love, stopped contorting yourself to fit the shape of her expectations. You are not cold or closed off. You have become self-contained. Your validation is generated internally. You have become what every man becomes after a true heartbreak and the subsequent rebuilding. Dangerous in his calm, magnetic in his focus, and unshakable in his purpose. This energy is palpable, and she will sense it even from a distance. This energy is what truly destroys her illusion of control. It reminds her of everything she sacrificed, and it wasn't just your love. It was your leadership, the quiet confidence with which you moved through the world. It was your consistency, the bedrock reliability that she mistook for predictability. It was your grounding presence, the safe harbor she now realizes she desperately needs in her chaotic seas. The worst part for her is the dawning knowledge that she can no longer earn these things back. They were gifts she devalued, and you have wisely stopped offering them to her. They were gifts she devalued, and you have wisely stopped offering them to her. She will try again, of course. The attempts will evolve from words to gestures. She might accidentally show up at a place she knows you frequent. Her social media posts may become thinly veiled hints of regret and what could have been. She is trying to trigger your curiosity to see if there is a single ember of the old, reactive you left to rekindle. But there isn't. You have healed too deeply to play that game. You have learned that interest does not equal investment. You can acknowledge her existence without entertaining her energy. You no longer need to block her to move on. You have emotionally detached to the point where her presence, virtual or physical, cannot shake the foundations of the peace you have built. This is when you truly win. The victory is not in rejecting her, but in achieving a state of neutrality where you can look at the person who once held absolute power over your heart and feel nothing but a quiet respect for the lessons she brought into your life. The real victory is realizing you no longer need to prove you've moved on. You are simply already gone. As the months dissolve into years, her regret undergoes a final, profound metamorphosis. It matures from a sharp personal ache into a deep, haunting reflection. This is no longer about simply missing your presence or the comfort you provided. It becomes a quiet, inescapable audit of her own soul. She is finally forced to confront the role she played in her own downfall. The clarity will not arrive in a single, dramatic moment, but in a slow, relentless drip during lonely nights. During petty arguments with new men who lack your depth, And in those stark moments of stillness where there is no one left to distract her from herself, in that silence, she will remember your patience not as a weakness, but as a strength she was too immature to recognize. She will recall the times you stayed grounded when she tried to provoke chaos, the times you sought to understand her instead of reacting to her drama. And she will be gutted by the realization that no one will ever offer her that kind of profound, unwavering love again. That specific caliber of love, rooted in depth, patience, and genuine understandings, is a once-in-a-lifetime offering. And she cashed it in for fleeting validation. While she is drowning in this quiet reckoning, your life will begin to reward your detachment in ways you never anticipated. The immense energy you once hemorrhaged, the mental real estate devoted to decoding her moods, the emotional bandwidth spent trying to fix the unfixable, the spiritual vigor poured into a bottomless well is now channeled inward. You pour it into your purpose, your health, your peace, and life, in its immutable law of reciprocity, responds. New opportunities seem to find you. Your focus becomes a laser, cutting through distractions with ease. Your personal growth accelerates because you are no longer carrying a passenger who is actively drilling holes in your boat. You will feel stronger, sharper, and more disciplined, not because you are fighting a battle, but because the war is over. Even your silence now carries a new quality. It is not the silence of absence, but of authority. People will notice the unshakable calm in your demeanor, a quiet confidence that cannot be bought or faked. It is in this fertile ground of self-possession that you will finally understand the grand, painful irony. The heartbreak was never a curse. It was the necessary initiation into your own evolution. You did not lose a woman. You shed a critical weakness. You were forced to become the man you were always meant to be. This transformation will fundamentally rewire how you perceive not just her, but all potential connections. You will lose the capacity to romanticize potential. You will stop falling for poetic words and start obsessively observing patterns of behavior. You will understand that intense attraction without a foundation of emotional maturity is merely the prelude to manipulation. You will begin to value the serenity of silence over the exhausting highs and lows of chaos. You will prefer a purposeful solitude over a shallow, draining connection. This is not you building walls. It is you honing a compass. And that is when you become truly powerful, when your happiness, your sense of self, your inner peace are no longer contingent on how someone else feels about you. You start living life on your own terms, governed by purpose, discipline, and a hard-won emotional clarity. You become the kind of man women speak about in whispers, but rarely experience, because you have mastered the ultimate balance, the ability to love deeply without losing yourself in the process. This is the chasm that now separates you from your past. She will feel this difference, and it will quietly shatter her, because she now understands that in the grand reshuffling, she has become the replaceable one, not you. At some point, life will grant her a final, cruel glimpse of what she willingly destroyed. She will see you in a photograph, standing next to someone new. She won't just see another woman. She will sense the energy. She will see a person who is peaceful, feminine, and grounded, standing beside the man you have become, calm, centered, and powerful. And she will know with a certainty that will burn in her gut for years, that this is what it looks like when a man gives his love to a woman who knows its value. The sight will cause a pain far deeper than jealousy. It will be the pain of realization. She will remember that she once held the keys to that same kingdom, and she threw them away, believing the glitter of fool's gold was more valuable. She will be haunted by the ghost of her own potential, wishing she could rewind time to treat you the way you deserved. But that is the eternal tragedy of pride. It always realizes the value of what it had precisely one moment after it has been irrevocably lost. And you? You will simply keep walking forward, not with bitterness, not with a need for revenge, but with a peace that is your permanent companion. You have made peace with the past because you understand, in your bones, that she was never meant to stay. Her purpose was not to be your forever, but to be your awakening. Her absence taught you the priceless value of your own presence. Her rejection was the chisel that forced you to sculpt your self-respect. Her silence was the void in which you discovered your own formidable strength. You now live with an energy that is self-sustaining. It doesn't need validation or revenge to power it. You have become the man who no longer feels the need to explain his worth to anyone. He simply embodies it, and the world around him adjusts accordingly. So when she thinks of you, and she will for the rest of her life, it won't be with hatred. It will be with a kind of awe, because you became everything she had always wanted. You just didn't become it for her. And that, right there, is the final, unassailable victory. The moment you realize you never needed her to change, you just needed to remember who you were before you ever tried to love her.